the final day of SFF, I noticed the story of JuanHand and the growth spurt that it has shown in recent years. Tell me about its business model, what sets you apart, and how this happened.
Yeah, okay. Very quickly, I can talk all day about it, right? But maybe the most succinct way of stating it is the business model is all about serving the underserved yet creditworthy, and how our AI helps filter out the ones that actually need financial services the most and has the capacity to pay, while submitting only the minimal type of requirements like basic KYC, one valid ID. And from that, our AI now is able to determine how creditworthy that person is in a matter of, if you're a repeat borrower, under 45 seconds.
Wow.
If you're a first-time borrower, maybe under 5 minutes. And then, determine what kind of interest rate you'll have, what kind of loan amount you'll have. So, so that's basically the business model of how our AI is used to serve the creditworthy and underserved by traditional type of financial services. Yeah.
What sets you apart from the others? I hear all about these alternative lending practices using technology, like leveraging AI and other things, that alternative credit scoring, for example.
Right, that's a great point.
But what sets you apart?
Okay, not all AI is created the same. So a college kid in his garage can basically make an algorithm that can determine risk worthiness, right? But it's not as simple as that. A more powerful AI actually is more thorough in getting to know who the applicant is. I would say that our AI sets us apart. That's one thing that sets us apart, because it actually does this really, really fast. It does this really thoroughly. For example, we tend not to lend male 25 to 40 years old, not married, on a Thursday night. We will not lend out to him.
Why is
because
that?
tendency is our AI knows.
Is such a giveaway.
Okay, so
that you're different.
Our AI knows that the risk of lending out to this person would have, the risk is about 60% default, because
they're going out on a Friday?
They will go out on a Friday and use the money instead for a worthy cause. Drinks, partying with friends, and other salacious activities. But not AI can determine that. Our AI can, right? And we have all the other examples, like, because remember, we don't really ask for a lot of information, like proof of billing, proof of address. We don't. Really? So if you say like Osalve lives, for example, in let's say White Plains, Quezon City, our AI knows whether you're telling the truth or not. How? Salve's phone for the past week has been in White Plains from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Therefore, she's probably telling the truth. So it verifies all the inputs that you placed and validates it through various means, whether social media footprint, whether telco history, and all these things. So that's AI, it's one. Number two that sets us apart is, I think, our customer service. We're the only ones with 24/7 customer service via chat, email. We're the only ones with live customer service agents every day from 9 to 6. No other fintech cash lending app has that. So it builds trust, it builds accessibility, and convenience for our borrowers. And
Give me some numbers. So how fast really have you grown? Because all of the things that I've been hearing about is that you have achieved a lot of the growth in borrowing, in borrowers, and the number of borrowers, for example. But tell me the numbers.
Okay, so specific numbers, right? So step back. So in terms of growth for us, so from 2023 versus 2022, we've tripled our growth. 2024 versus 2023, it's going to be 2.5x versus last year, and next year will be doubling again. Okay, so that's the trajectory. So we became number one pure fintech cash lending app in less than 2 years. So we're now the leading one. So more numbers. We do about 70,000 transactions a day.
Wow.
We have over 50, over close to 60 million downloads, over 16 million registrations. We have 2 million active borrowers at any given point. We disburse more than 2.5 billion pesos a month. We have a loan book of about 6 billion pesos. Yeah, so that really, we're blessed that we're able to have grown so much and be a significant contributor to financial inclusion.
How's your default rate?
Default rate, I can talk only in range. I would say, and happy to talk to others who may want to validate our numbers. We have the lowest default rate in the fintech industry of about between 13 to 15%. Default rate usually for uncollateralized fintech cash lending companies is between 18 to 25%, sometimes even 40%.
Wow.
That's why a lot are folding up, right? But yeah, so I think we're the gold standard right now in terms of default rate.
How'd you do it?
Again, via
Aside from
AI,
yeah.
via stickiness in terms of building trust and credibility through customer service, via branding, by actually treating, if you ask me, right? Treating all our borrowers like they were our moms. My personal experience really, Salve, right? So I'm Provinciano, right? So I was born in Davao, raised actually in Davao City, but my lolo and lola are farmers. And at one point,
Not a sendero?
no, not a, I'm really Provinciano. Not, and then at one point, my lola and lola in Kidapawan had no money for fertilizer in order to, of course, make sure that a robust yield in terms of the rice that they were planting. No financial institution gave them money. So for one season, my parents and even us were not eating practically what we were used to. So sometimes it's tuyo, of course, rice and asin. So I experienced that, right? So I think I keep telling the team, right? Every borrower is like my lola. Everyone has a story of a person who needed money and didn't get it. Now, think about it, whether it's your mom, your dad, your kuya, so they need it. So treat them, and they're your closest relative or loved one, treat them as such. So I think this resonates with how our customer service talks to every borrower. Wow. If you can't even afford to pay, sometimes you have difficulty, we have PTP, promise to pay. Sige po, tulungan ko po kayo kung hindi nyo kaya ngayon. So I think that how we really treat the customers is key.
That's refreshing. In the financial education field, sometimes you talk all the time about people who want to borrow because they're overspending. This is a more empathetic way of looking at the business, no?
Yes.
And the payment terms are not very high, not very difficult to meet.
No, it's basically we do nano loans, right? So nano loans is defined as 2,000 pesos up to about 50,000. Tenor or payable between 30 days to 120 days, right? So it's not, of course, interest rate is capped at 15%, which is the SEC regulation. So we're within that, and sometimes depending on the product, way below that. So this is really very affordable. Actually, sometimes when I talk to some people, say, "Oh, isn't 15% predatory?" Okay. Who is the other option if they don't go through us? Loan sharks.
Yeah.
Okay. Loan sharks means 5/6.
Yes.
5/6 means 20% interest rate every payday. How many paydays do we have in a month? Twice.
Yeah.
So 40% a month versus 15% a month. And so if you really look at from a consumer's perspective, we're a blessing. And I'd like to believe we are, and that's why there's really a noble purpose in doing this, right?
What's the biggest challenge or risk in the industry today?
Okay, so I think the biggest challenge in terms, maybe I'll put it a bit more specific, like what is the biggest challenge in financial inclusion? Okay, the biggest challenge in financial inclusion is number one, okay, offhand. The one is first the financial savviness and comfort of Filipinos, ordinary Filipinos, to loan via an app. Okay, that's the first one. Because sometimes even if they know loan sharks or traditional lending is it's higher in interest, because they're not comfortable with using an app, or they don't trust the app as much, they'd rather go with that traditional way of lending. So that's comfort level, right? So as we increase, a lot of Filipinos are tech literate, but to up, because we do Facebook and all these things,
right.
you watch YouTube, whatever. But translating that financial literacy, being financially literate, and to digital lending is key to increasing penetration. Okay. Number two, the reputation. We as an industry has to work together to make sure people are comfortable lending via an app, by making sure they're not scammed, they're not harassed, their data privacy is protected. So that's another challenge, to increase the reputation of the industry to be a really positive one, a trusting one, a credible one. So I think that's a second challenge. The third challenge, more internal, is how we're able to make sure that we only serve the creditworthy. So being able to effectively weed out fraudsters, scammers, and all the like. Yeah.
How is the industry coming together to do that? I know that there's been a lot of talk about it, of working together. There's already an industry association, right, of lenders that work with the SEC. But is there any progress in making sure that there are no bad players? Because the bad actors actually make the field very bad for everybody else.
Fantastic. I mean, that's a great point, Salve, because, and that's why we created, and this is fairly new, right? I think we just got incorporated August of 2023, the Consumer Lending Association of Philippines, wherein this is the association of the most reputable, above board, biggest, and most influential fintech lenders, right?
Yes.
So we formed that. I'm the president right now. Fuse, Tony Isidro is the chairman. And so, yeah, we banded together to make sure we address what you just mentioned, right? Like, if there are bad players, they're good players. And this is the group of good players. So because these good players now will help make sure that the equity, the positive equity of the industry spreads. And so people get to trust us, to be comfortable with us using fintech lending, and that now will spread that, hey, it's okay, your data is safe with us, because it is, your data is safe with us, we won't harass you, it's fair and reasonable interest rates, and so this is what fintech app is all about. So we're spreading that, and then we're coupling it with financial literacy as well. So that in combination will increase the reputation in a positive way for the entire industry.
Final question. Trajectory for the entire industry. You're growing very fast. Do you think the entire industry how big is it going to grow in the next 5 to 10 years, considering that your total addressable market size is huge, because the underserved far trumps the size of the people who actually have access to traditional banking products?
Yeah. Great point, and I think that's one aspect that the Consumer Lending Association have to unite together so that we can quote the same figure. But I'll quote from my perspective. Okay, so the growth of the industry, the fintech industry is, of course, one of the bright spots of the economy, right? It's been growing exponentially, but that's a whole spectrum of the fintech, right? From e-commerce to open banking, insurtech, wealth tech. For fintech lending in particular, I would say, if not the top, it's one of the top 3 highest growing subcomponents of the entire fintech industry. And when I say highest growth, it will grow from about 38 to 48% CAGR in the next 5 years.
Wow.
It's exponential.
That's huge.
Right? But just look at us, right? So we're 300%, 250%.
Right.
So in a way, we're blessed and proud to be leading that growth, but on the average, it's about 38 to 48% CAGR. And I think I'm being conservative. I think if you talk to other fintech cash lending leaders, they might even quote higher figures, which is great. But yeah, that's our numbers.
Well, thank you so much, Coco. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Great talking to you. Thank you.
That's your Business Outlook. I'm Ron Crow.
And I'm Salve Duplito. The World Tonight comes your way at the top of the next hour. Keep it here on ANC.
Are up to date. So the benefit of having renewable energy or rooftop solar